guys, Josh with Goals Finishing. Today we're going to be refinishing this table. It'll be real quick, real easy. Hopefully you guys like the video. Hopefully you learned something. Don't forget to hit subscribe and check out my other videos, and we'll see you soon. So here I am sanding using this pretty cool tool I actually did a video on in one of my other videos. It's pretty neat. Really takes off the finish. Keeps me from having to strip so much. Then once I'm done with that, since it goes cross grain, I go through and hand sand it. Next, the table was kind of out of whack. It had some real rough edges, so I went in with my hand sander and got those down pretty flat with 60 grit. Now I'm going through with 60 grit and kind of getting that paint off the table. I don't like to use that tool I was using on the legs on a flat surface because they really carve out the wood. If you do it on a flat surface, it's pretty noticeable. Next, I have some mineral spirits on a cloth, and I get the cloth nice and damp. Go through and clear that dust out. It helps remove all the dust and all the paint chips and everything. I didn't remove all the paint because I'm going over with another paint. So here I'm also using a primer, so that helps cover up some of the old paint. So really the goal here is to create scratches in the previous paint, if not remove it completely, but to put scratches in the previous paint, allow it to adhere to the new paint. And primer only helps with that. So I'm going through with a primer. It's a gray base. So what I'm doing here is applying the primer with a nice bristle brush, getting those legs real good in the crevices and everything. It is a challenge because you almost have to go on one side of your brush to get it, but it usually works out just fine. Just make sure that you get all the bubbles. If there are bubbles, make sure to run through it a little bit. And there's the primed surface. Now I'm going through and hand sanding the primer, getting all the bumps off, making sure it's clean. I usually use printer paper, just regular printer paper, because once you get, a little above 400 grit, unless you're working with something very finite, you're not really doing much. So really just printer paper works great, or cardboard if you have any. Now we're applying our paint. I'm using a very, very dark black. It was one of the only colors I had on me at the moment, and I didn't feel like going out to Home Depot and buying more paint for a very small project, so I decided to go with black on this one. The edges at that time, after sanding, weren't perfectly smooth, but even after the 120 grit, there was still some roughness to it. So I think it gave it a nice little rustic look. to leave it a little rough on the edges. Now I'm coming through and painting the legs over the primer, giving it a nice smooth finish. Again, definitely important to get in those crevices and get it as smooth as possible. Make sure there's no runs and make sure there's no bubbles also. Which if you sand to 120 or to 180, or 220, that will help lessen some of the bubbles you get, along with brushing correctly, and your paint methods also are very important for that. And there's the finished product before our last coat. And that's it. Hey guys, hope you liked the video. Um, so it's set throughout the night, completely dry now, and we had a couple runs along the side apron here. Um, Not really runs, just kind of some sagging um, from the paint. I think it turned out nice though. I have the habit of brushing too thick. Um, I think it has to do with my skills in the polyurethane side of it. I usually like to, you know, stain and poly things. So, with this new paint that I'm using and the painting methods that I'm still getting used to, I probably put it on a little too thick, especially on my first coat. So I should have just taken the time to maybe do a third coat, much thinner between each coat, instead of two real thick coats, which, I knew that, and I think that's just a habit of mine that, oh, it looks like the wood grain's gone, it's time to wrap it up. With that being said, I will do better next time. Hopefully get these coats on a lot smoother. Um, I can do rolling methods and stuff like that work just as good too. So um, other than that though, it looks really, really good. So I should be able to sell this piece for a good chunk of change, and hope you guys liked the video. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe, drop a comment in the comments box if you have questions or answers or any new tips and tricks. And yeah, so we'll see you guys later. Thanks.